Welcome to another installment of our sounding board. This is Anna Pinedo, and today we have our guest from the Center for Board Matters at EY to join us for a brief recap on insights from the America's Board Priorities 2025 report. So maybe we can start with just an introduction.
Great. Thanks, Anna. It's great to be with you today. My name's Robyn Bew, and I head up EY Center for Board Matters, which is our corporate governance practice. And we really focus on three things. We do a lot of board education to support continuous improvement in the boardroom, fiduciary duty of care for our clients. So that's full boards, key committees, individual directors, new directors. We also do a lot of convening of board members from different companies. So bringing them together as peers to learn from one another and also have dialogue with, other stakeholders in the governance ecosystem. So investors, executives, policymakers, and the like. And then thought leadership is really the engine for all that and sort of our third pillar of publications, webcasts. And we know that in addition to board members tapping into those materials, we know that executives like to tap into them as well because they like to be rock stars in front of their own boards and stay ahead of the questions that boards are asking management teams.
That's the perfect segue, Robyn, to America's Board Priorities 2025 report. Can you share a couple of key insights from this year's report?
Yeah, well, so one of the inputs to this report every year is that we give a list of topics and issues to board members, and that's the US, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, elsewhere in Latin America, over 500 responses this year. And we ask them to rate those topics in terms of priority level for their boardrooms. And we take a look at the percentage of directors who rated a given topic in their top five. And so what we saw was that oversight of management response to volatile economic conditions and oversight of capital strategy were number one and number two on the list for boards this year in terms of priorities. And they were the same right at the top of the list in 2024 as well. So that stayed pretty consistent. Oversight of cybersecurity and data privacy also was very consistent year on year as very high priorities. And then in terms of some of the shifts that we saw between 2024 and 2025, a lot more directors ranked innovation and evolving technologies as a top five priority this year. Maybe not hugely a surprise as this continues just to dominate, the business press. It's dominating companies' strategies, business model transformation. So, we're just seeing that play out in the boardroom. And then the biggest jump that we saw year over year as a board priority, again, self-ranked, self-reported by those directors, was regulatory developments. And again, if you think about the sample set here was directors from across the Americas, and of course, not only in the US, but in many countries around the world, a lot of newly elected governments starting to guide policy, implement that. And so boards are certainly paying attention to that.
Do the priorities you're hearing from boards align with those of large institutional investors?
We actually give investors the same set of topics, that same list, and we ask them to rate them in terms of where they want companies and boards to prioritize. And by investors here, we mean the investor stewardship leaders, so the folks who are voting the proxies, traditional asset managers like the BlackRocks, Vanguard, State Streets of the world, the public pension funds, labor funds, some activists, mostly US based, but some from Canada and Europe and the UK as well. And what we saw, Anna, was that there was actually strong alignment between investors' top priorities and board priorities, which should hopefully be a positive message for all sides. So not only alignment in terms of the straight up board priorities, so high on both lists. Innovation and emerging technology was a priority for investors as well, where they want to see companies and board focus. And it was also cybersecurity as well, ranked very high by both. What's interesting too is that some of the other areas where investors wanted to see companies focus and boards focus is where board members also said they want to spend more time. And so those are in areas like talent and human capital, oversight, and oversight of climate change and environmental stewardship. So those issues were ranked high by investors. And what we heard from boards was we as directors want to be spending more time on the boardroom agenda on those things.
Maybe our last question. Since you mentioned innovation and emerging technologies as key priorities, what questions are boards asking management with regard to AI oversight?
Yep. This is something that we're spending a lot of time on with our clients and in our dialogues at the various roundtables where we're bringing directors together, Anna. Couple questions that we hear boards asking management teams. First and foremost is tell us about the inventory. Where is the company using AI enabled tools, including Gen AI and now also agentic AI? Another really important question that boards want to engage on with management teams is what's the company's risk appetite for AI? Are we, the board, aligned with management on how much risk are we taking in some of these areas? And then finally, third one is something the boards are asking themselves, which is how are we as directors, particularly those of us in the boardroom who may not have a deep background in some of these new areas, how are we staying informed? How are we staying educated? And where can we maybe even be getting some hands-on experience from management or others with some of these tools?
Great. So I'm sure that our audience will enjoy reading the report in its entirety and learning more from it. Thanks so much, Robin, for sharing these highlights with us today.
Thanks again. It was great to be with you, Anna.